the way I envisioned this report reading was that the first point I think that would be made, and we may be bleeding into another agenda item, which is number 5, but I'll continue anyway. The first item is that we've all reviewed the charter. We've heard from Marilyn Contreras, and we've each read several other more modern city charters, and it's obvious to everyone on this committee, and I'm not speaking for the committee, but anybody can chime in and tell me if I'm wrong, that a new charter needs to be developed, that there seems to be a consensus, at least among those, among the councilors who we heard from, and probably from a majority of this committee, that the best process for doing that, or the most appropriate process for doing that, is through a charter commission. That there are a number of major issues beyond the fundamental structural problems of our charter that isn't just forming the skeleton of a government and dividing powers and allowing the details of each of those departments to be formulated through the city council's process of passing ordinances. Here are the big issues that we've seen, and these are big issues that were discussed, I think, in the 70s and in the 90s when we went through the charter process. And they are as follows: the better separation of powers, so that the mayor is not chairing the city council's meeting. And we could say that there seemed to be a consensus among not only committee members, but among many of the people we heard from, that this is an antiquated model and it ought to be changed. The mayor's role on the school committee, whether the mayor is a member of the school committee, and whether the member is the chair of the school committee. There are issues looking at terms, length of terms. There's division on term limits. I know that you are a big supporter, Councilor Adams, of term limits.
Quick point.
Yeah.
As I hear more discussion and think about this more and more, I don't know if I feel it's a necessity to make a commission address them.
Commission address term limits?
Specifically.
I don't, you see, the point is here, the commission's going to address what the commission decides to address. Nothing we say here is going to bind the commission to do or not do anything.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, if we had a more skeletal, less specific style of charter, like the modern charters are, and a city council decided they wanted term limits, it would also give them the leeway to do that. So, I don't know if it's necessary for us to do that. Also, frankly, throughout the entire discussions, I think I've been talked out of the idea that terms are the way to go.
It does seem like it's something that shows up in other charters, though.
It's just something for the Charter Commission. I think that those things that we seem to have consensus around in the model of best practices, we have consensus on certain things. I think most notably the mayor not chairing the city council meetings and having a better separation of powers. We could indicate that. Other issues that were discussed were length of terms. I personally think that a 2-year term for the mayor is too short. That's my feeling. I feel like
it is.
As soon as the mayor gets elected, he or she's going to start campaigning for the next election if she wants to be reelected, and it's just too short a time.
Also, even as a city councilor for 2 years, it's a learning process. Just like the mayor, it's a learning process. I mean, I've been on it for 13 years and I learn all the time. How long a councilor should be a councilor, I think it's up to the voters to make that decision. If you're doing a good job you're gonna be voted in. If they don't want you, you're out the door.
Well, that's term limits, that's different than how long do you serve once you're in.
Oh,
You
I know
Are you
that.
serving a 4-year term, or are you
Right.
serving, 2 years, I think it's too short for both positions, just because you
I think that
do
should be
so
4
much.
years, each one of them.
The other issue that came up was the at-large ward mix, whether this is an appropriate mix. You see, these are issues that,
It's political.
well, it is political, but it's something that a charter commission is gonna have to look at, and decisions going to have to be made in the final report about whether we keep our current ward and at-large.
You know, the final report of our group or of the commission?
No, of the charter commission, but these are the big issues that are to be looked at, whether we have appropriately divvied up the ward and at-large council membership.
We also talked about president and vice president of city council. And I have talked with Counselor in Springfield, also in East Hampton. I have met them a couple of times. I went to one of their meetings for MMA in East Hampton, and it's run the way it should be run. And I like that system.
Al, I'm still stuck with the question of what our role is exactly. I mean, I do get the sense, my sense was that we were to offer some guidelines for how this future charter might look. And whether that goes through as charter commission to actually, cross the Ts and dot the Is, or any other means that we would still be able to go and put together a document that says this is where we see some issues and this is where we have some suggestions about how it ought to be. And thus we would have the purview to say, recommend one way or the other on all these issues, on term limits, on council officers, on separation of powers, on.
Right, I think, I would not see a problem why we can't state a recommendation.
But is there an
Well, what I would
expectation?
like to do is to go through and find out what the issues that we would like to address in this report, and next meeting, we're having a public forum. The meeting after that, I think, we're gonna need to take positions on these various issues, if that's what we're gonna do. And then we're gonna put together a report. We could be divided on a number of these issues, and report that. That's fine. And so, that's where I'm going. What I'd really like to do is make the laundry list of the items that we should be prepared to discuss and take a position on at our January meeting. So I've got 5 issues on my list: the separation of powers, term
Do
length.
you want to expand on that with the separation of powers?
This is essentially the mayor chair.
Sure. But which, you can break that down further, about what are the powers that fall under each one of
Can you
those
just
branches.
We don't have to do
Can we
that.
just have the 5, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
For the minutes.
sorry.
Term length, ward at-large distribution, city council officers, including vice president, election versus appointment of positions, term limits could be something, even if we have unanimity opposed to it, it's something that a commission ought to be thinking about.
Well, so it makes me think, how are we gonna take a vote of this committee on each of these? Whether or not they should be, something that the commission should consider? Because in that event, if we all vote against it, then it wouldn't be something the commission should consider.
Well, I think what Mark was saying was that we ought to look at these and make a recommendation on whether the commission should adopt these. Is that what you were saying? So in other words,
But we'd have to go through these and vote each one up or
Right.
down as something that they should take a look at.
No, we can take a look at it, but this is our position on it.
yeah, this is what we believe the commission should do with this. We believe the commission should consider term limits, but we don't think term limits are appropriate.
Okay.
That would be a recommendation.
That would be a recommendation. I'm just using that as an example. I don't know that that's what the vote would be, but that's just an example. School committee and the mayor's role.
I've got some others.
Yep.
These are also things that came up, the initiative petition and signatures, signature requirements for those.
Were we not talking about the signature requirements to get on the ballot?
Yes.
Isn't that what we were
It
talking
wasn't an
about?
initiative petition.
Well,
it was- it was how-
Signatures not required, oh, signatures not required to get on the ballot, right. Yeah, so that was actually one of them too. But then I just also, this was a follow-up one, initiative petitions and the referendums, what the process is for bringing those up to a vote.